on the anniversary of the 2024 election, the lessons, and so far, how is it going for the people of Ghana? I think we'll come to that too. Your vote, is it going well for you? There's Dr. Gbensuglo Bukari, is head of political science at the University of Development Studies. Thank you very much for your time, and a good morning to you.
Good morning, Sena.
I hope you're well, Doc.
I'm doing well. Good morning once again to you and to your listeners, and then thank you for having me on the program this morning.
Well, for us who were in the media and took part in monitoring the 2024 elections, it was something historic, the way it happens and the results that we saw.
Correct.
But for you, perhaps, who have been following the political history of this country, do you feel the same about the 2024 elections?
Exactly. Thank you. In fact, the 2024 election is unprecedented one in the history of this country. We saw that maybe in the early part of when we're struggling, like 51, I think, and 79 or so. But for the Fourth Republic, of course, 2024 one is one that gave politicians what I would call they must always remember what we call the political reciprocity between the politician and that of average voter. I said this because the 2024 election was a wake-up call for all politicians in this country. When power is given you, you should know that you didn't just fight for it. People give you that power. It is your duty to actually provide and deliver why that power is given to you. Yes.
I see. What do you think? And looking back, I'm sure at the time, the reasons you would have assigned for the NPP's defeat, the massive defeat in the elections,
correct.
Do those reasons still stand for you, or since then, further reflections that have showed you perhaps exactly what the people of Ghana were thinking?
For the 1 year into the administration of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, watching him and his team from without, I must say that he's quite aware the reason for which Ghanaians rejected MPP and then brought him, Mahama, and NDC into power exactly a year ago yesterday. So I think he's working towards that to actually, tell Ghanaians that, of course, I know why you voted for me. This was the reason, and all indicators for now, I must say, is sort of like convincing us that yes, we voted against MPP because of A, B, C, D, and the man President John Mahama is actually trying to reset that. Of course, he came to power at the back of reset agenda, and I think if you monitor events or his public engagement in the last quarter of this particular year, we saw a whole lot of shortcutting, promising enough, and people are beginning to convince that politicians, after all, are not the same. So, of course, to answer your question, I think that, yes, the reason for which they voted for him and against the MPP last year, he's trying to reset that. And so that Ghanaians don't come back to finding him and his party 2028, coming 2028, as they did to MPP.
That defeat was so massive. Did you, from your own analysis of the situation and lead up to the election, expect it to have been so bad for the New Patriotic Party?
Exactly.
You expected that?
I expected that. Of course, I was one of those who engaged in this political research, but some of us, our results were not that public, but those are shared with. Even in the first quarter of 2024, I saw it coming. I did a follow-up interview, conduct research, and all that. And finally, the conclusion was that NDC was actually going to win election with 57.4, and it came exactly so. Several reasons were assigned to that. People lost hope in the politician, completely disillusioned, a whole lot of, corruption scandals. People were like, oh, the politician today is not the same as those we know in the past. Particularly, President Akufo-Addo came with a whole lot of hope. 2016 manifesto coming 2020, and at the tail end of it, people lost hope in all that he and his people told Ghanaians. So that was the point there. And to worsen the situation, economic indicators were just anything to describe. But today we can see that even though it's not that gloomy, but we can see that sort of hope. And we believe in the next 3-4 years to come, things will be far better than 2024.
Yeah, there are those who felt that election was more of a Waterloo moment for Ghana's democracy. That
Exactly.
the MPP's defeat was not only a warning to the MPP, but also a wake-up call to the National Democratic Congress, who were the beneficiaries of that election. Do you agree with those who hold that opinion?
I agree perfectly, Sena, but I think I just said that. Yes, 2024 election for many people and many of us in academia, and looking at some of the things that were, the happenings, even within and without, we thought it was an Independence Day. Especially the results actually speak to that position many of us and other Ghanaians held. For the NDC, it's a wake-up call because the cane that whipped MPP is likely to whip NDC the same way. Because, like I said earlier, I think the NDC, led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama now, is quite aware the happenings, the reciprocal relationship between a politician and an average voter. That is, once they give you power, they expect you to account to them why that power is giving you. And so the NDC is a wake-up call because, like over the time, you see him questioning his appointees and so on and so forth. But I think going forward, NDC should take a whole lot of lesson from that election and actually account to Ghanaians the little resources that they've come to meet and how they are going to use it, and deliver particularly on all the promises that they have, during the election. They told Ghanaians they are coming to do A, B, C, D. And so that is a big lesson here, and that is a wake-up call there.
And you said it was clear how the Ghanaian felt at the time. They were not only losing interest in the government in power,
Correct.
They were also losing faith in our democracy and politicians in general. What accounted for that?
It is because of how the leadership at the time, actually handling issues. It was more or less like kind of what we know, what democracy stands for, is not what we witnessed under His Excellency Akufo-Addo, to say so. A whole lot of incidences I cannot mention offhand, but you can see, even at the presidency, it was a no-go area for anybody. But today is not the case. That's a clear difference. In democracy, you don't put a whole lot of impediments on, citizens try to express themselves. In fact, in the political system, we have something we call demand and supply. The demand is that the citizen will always put in their demand in the form of petition, protest and all that. It is the duty of the leadership to allow that to happen. But that was not the case in the past administration. That's one clear example. But today, I think we saw the same presidency. We saw people walking, marching across the street, and the president actually allowed them to come in and things like that. That is what we are calling for, and that is what democracy stands for. So you should allow that free expression of citizens. And then we saw media personalities like you and others Some were picked from handcuff and then, and things. I think that was not good for democracy like Ghana, and especially under the presidency of someone who is a lawyer. I think people like us in the political class were like, what is going on? So if you match all the indicators of democracy against the real happenings in Ghana at the time, there's one conclusion you can draw, and which was more or less like a dictatorship. And that is not good for us, and that is not good for democracy like Ghana. I mean, so to summarize it, that was the issue. It was more like despotic kind of leadership, vindictiveness, political handpick and things like that. So, but today we are seeing this kind of sanity that Mahama is introducing and trying to ensure inclusiveness and trying to ensure expression of views and accommodating enough. That was what we expected from Akufo-Addo, His Excellency, when he was a president, and so that was not the case at the time. So I think these were some of the indicators that somebody can draw conclusion and say that our democracy was not what we actually wished for under His Excellency Nana Addo.
And then the interesting thing was the MPP still insists that President Akufo-Addo was not on the ballot paper. People were voting on Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Yeah. But there are those who still insist that verdict spoke loudly about how Ghanaians felt about the kind of governance that was delivered by President Akufo-Addo, the MPP under the leadership of President Akufo-Addo. That it was people saying, we thought he was going to be better, but he disappointed us. You seem to be saying the same thing.
Yeah, so that is true. Sena, in the basket of voting, we have three categories of voters. There are many who will always look back. We call it retrospective voters. And there are some who also look ahead or look into the future. We call them prospective voters. So in 2024, putting Bawumia, his public demeanor, public engagement against Akufo-Addo leadership in the past 8 years, and all the indicators that people were considering when making their choices retrospectively, and against Mahama, who was then coming from opposition, who was, of course, was also a president. People, majority of Ghana will look like, wow, this is a man who thinks he knows it all. But when he came, we didn't see that. Against a gentleman who was once a president and said, I don't know it all. I need you to support me. Come with your ideas. Yes, so Akufo-Addo was not on the ballot box, but retrospectively, his leadership style, his character, public engagement, and then the vice then who was the candidate of the MPP, if you look at his public engagement, his character and demeanor, and the way he speaks to the people, fundamentally something was not adding up. And so putting all together, and Ghanaians thought that, no, even though Bawumia was not, Akufo-Addo, His Excellency was not on the ballot box, it was just like endorsing Akufo-Addo. So the two is the same. That's how come I believe people made that decision against Bawumia, and MPP were now saying that, well, it's not Akufo-Addo who was on the ballot, it's Bawumia and things like that. But Bawumia was part of the administration. So I find even in that era, he himself, Bawumia, was more like we find in a political theater where he wants to take credit for what is good, and then he don't want to take credit for what is not good and try to absorb himself from it. And that was a very big blow on his candidacy. Well, you must admit that I'm part of this. I took credit for that, but blame me for this, and then I will make amendments, things like that. This is a politician who doesn't want to take credit. Who always take credit for what is good and blame others for what is bad, and then try to say that he's not part of that. And that is not good enough as a politician. And so those were indicators or factors that actually, put together affected his chance. And not only Akufo-Addo was not in the ballot. Of course, people will match Akufo-Addo, his leadership style, as we discussed earlier, against Bawumia. The two together put in a ballot box, and then they were rejected.
And I'll conclude on this question. You have been talking about whether or not the lessons have been learnt.
Okay.
Do you feel this government is learning the lessons of 2024?
Yes. Watching events from without. I have not had the opportunity to meet the president in person, but seeing his demeanor and his appointees, I believe that the current president and the NDC actually learn a lesson from that. We may say things if you put the deliverables for the 1 year, you may not be sympathetic towards the government for a government that is just a year to do everything that you want. That's not going to be possible. But we can see a whole lot of promises. Promising kind of preparing grounds to take off. So I think the NDC has learned a good lesson from that, and also I think that one of the things they need to also take care of is some of the things they mentioned when they were in opposition, particularly when it comes to appointees, the way the appointees are handling themselves, and then public outcry. And I think it's the president who is listening to people's views, people commentary, and some of the reactions from the presidency. You can see that I think that they are learning a whole lot of lessons from that. And then the other aspect of it is the Galamsey thing. I think the president is also listening. So Galamsey was one of the issues that affected the last administration, and I think the president is also learning a huge lesson from that. Recently, I saw that he has declared some of the area security zones and things like that. But I think learning from the 2024 election, the presidency and the NDC as a party know very well that all the things they said in 2024 will come to affect them if they actually do not account to the people the reason for which that party NDC was actually voted into power. So there's a whole lot of lessons NDC is learning from that. And one of the things is what we call public trust and an accountability, of which President Mahama, and this is what actually this anchored in his administration, at little opportunity he gets, he talked about that. I think recently in the Farmers Day, he actually emphasized that. And that is what Ghanaians are looking up to, and that's what Ghanaians actually want. So let the people know that you care for them, and you are just not there to serve yourself. So I describe the NDC currently under Mahama as a political programmer and someone who is a developmentalist in quote. And I think he's a politician who actually listens, and he thinks that he's voted into power to actually deliver and not to make himself and the family rich and so on and so forth.
Look, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thanks so much for having me, Sena.
Dr. Gbensuglo Bukari is head of Political Science Department, University of Development Studies, joining us on the line. And of course, we're continuing our conversation. And also don't forget that in Benin, there's been a coup d'etat. Yeah. And it's one of the things that we are